Well, welcome back to the channel and another very timely video on the Mini that I bought back in, was it April now? Now, I know a lot of you have been dying to find out what happened with the Mini. A lot happened with the Mini, as you might have seen in the thumbnail of this video. So let me pull over a chair and we can have a chat. I wouldn't say it's been my luckiest car, even from the very start of buying it, but let's talk about the crash and also about getting this finished and rebuilt the first time. So we figured out the issue with the crank, the engine went back together, we took it testing, and we were basically testing it locally for about a week, and it was running absolutely beautifully. Having never owned a Mini before, and this being a 1275, it is exactly what you'd imagine it to be. It's a tiny little go-kart and it absolutely flies. Now, after that first week, I decided to take it on a bit of a longer journey down towards some friends of mine in Scotland, about an hour and a half away, because we got entered into the Red Bull Soapbox race. So I was down there for the day, doing a load of stuff, stayed for the night, and then I took a drive home. Now, on that drive home, the roads were drying off. It was certainly a damp day. It's an incredible road for driving, so I was definitely pushing this little car pretty hard, but also making sure that I wasn't going too fast because it can get pretty slippery out there. And we got into, well, would I call it a crash? I'd call it a sliding sudden stop. I think that is the best way to put it. Now, I did manage to take some video whilst I was getting over the shock of the accident, and I think now would be a good time to jump into that, and past me can tell you exactly what happened with this Mini. This is not the video I was hoping to be making next. Someone just pulled out in front of me, and the Mini is there. So, yeah, here I am, edge of Loch Fyne. Nearly in the water. But now, my first issue was that Loch Fyne is a sea lock, and I was lucky enough to park my car by the water as the tide was rising. So I called a friend of mine, Adam, who drove down to come and see me, and we spent about 2 hours digging out behind the Mini to make sure that the water basically didn't flood the car. So we've just got the emergency lorry that comes, and it's got a crane on it apparently to lift this up, because for some reason maybe new front subframe, but look, the car's in one piece. It didn't roll. Fuck, I was really, really lucky. Yeah, anyway, I'm very interested to see how this crane works, and we can get this Mini back somewhere and rebuild it again. How this happened was I was coming from Inverary, heading towards Loch Fyne, and yeah, car's just been rebuilt. New engine, everything was running. That was the next video. Go through everything. We found a whole load of other stuff wrong with it. Talk about that another time. Anyway, coming down this road, very, very long, straight section of road. 2 cars in front of me. I'm doing 60. They're doing about 35 because the one in front is towing a boat. And I indicated, pulled out to go round both of them. And as I was doing that, the car in front of me decided he was going to do an overtake too. And he pulled out in front of me whilst I was basically doing 60. I locked up and lost the back end, pulled it back, lost it the other way, pulled it back, and then it just went off the edge. And if you look on this bank, it's about probably a 12-foot drop off the edge. So many trees along here. There's no safety on these cars as well. And dogs were in the back, and somehow I managed to get a section where I didn't try and keep the car on the road, so I turned into it and went off the bank And the lucky thing about that is obviously we haven't rolled. I think if I'd tried to keep that car going that way, I could have quite easily kind of come off and onto my roof. So really fucking lucky, very, very grateful. Annoying about the car in front of me, but hey, cars can be fixed. After 2 hours of digging around in the mud and making sure our Mini didn't disappear into Loch Fyne, the HIAB finally arrived and we were able to strap it up to lift it. Now, if you look at this clip, you can see those straps crushing the A-panels of my Mini and the rear arches. With a bit more planning, we could have probably avoided this. My heart was in my mouth as this was lifted onto the back of the lorry, but eventually it was on the road and heading back to my friend's yard, where it would spend a couple of months whilst I licked my wounds and figured out how to approach this project again. Now, very quickly, before we jump on to exactly what we're going to do with this Mini to finally get it on the road, I wanted to show you what I've been doing with this new space. Now, some of you might have only seen the last Mini video I did, which was me in this space, but now I'm in this space, which is absolutely amazing. I was given this opportunity, God, it's coming up to about 3 months ago now, and a lot of my time was taken up with clearing the full yard, which you might see in a few drone shots, but this is the space that I've been given, and it was an old carpenter's workshop. And if you have a look at my last video, you'll even see in that it wasn't at this stage. I've painted all the walls black, used one of my new spray guns. Not an expensive one because you don't want to be putting this sort of paint through anything like that, but also painted this back wall. We've also done the garage floor, so that's all been painted. I've got an entire side unit where I'm hoping to put my computer, get it carpeted. It's basically an old shipping container, but that's for another month. This has taken me too long, but we're now at a point where we can get the cars in. We can work on the GT6, which is very close to being on the road as well. But back to the Mini and what we are going to do with it, and also why it's up currently on jack stands. Let's get over there and talk about that. So after we recovered the Mini, it was taken up to a garage up in Killin, couple of hours away from where I live, and I didn't see it for about a month. To be honest, I didn't want to. The amount of time and money that had gone into getting this back on the road after the heartbreak of finding out that the engine was needing to be rebuilt, it just was a step too far to have to get back into it that quickly. I don't know if any of you have ever owned a project where you spent that amount of time or something and then it goes drastically wrong immediately. But we took that time, we took that space. I was able to leave it up there with my friends at Lixtol and just kind of forget about it for a month or so. Then obviously we jumped into this space and a lot of other things were going on, but it got to the point where I really wanted to have a look at this Mini again. My friend Adam, who came to collect me from the crash that you'll see in that video, the guy with the ponytail, he also drove up with me to Lixtol to get this on a trailer. When we picked it up, the wheels weren't pointing in the right direction. It did start, it had lost clutch. There was a whole load of stuff to go over. And yeah, we found there were numerous things wrong with it, and I guess now's the time to kind of go over what those were. So when the car went off the road, I got super lucky. Basically, I avoided the trees. We did go off pretty much a 12-foot embankment, but there are other parts of that embankment where it's a full-on drop. Where we went off, the wall had kind of collapsed a little bit, and because of that, the car kind of dived between two trees and went over the edge, and I kind of turned into the ditch rather than away from it. Again, like I said at the time, very lucky we didn't roll, But as we went down the front, there was a huge rock. It's probably about 1.5 to 2 foot by about the same again, that hit this part of the car. And when it hit it, I think we were kind of going down the slope. It went underneath, it chipped a couple of the fins on the bottom of my gearbox, went under the car, went under the passenger side, scraped up the subframe. We got the car on a ramp. There were no issues with the subframe at all, which was an absolute miracle. The whole thing was a miracle, to be honest. And that rock continued to travel down the passenger side of the vehicle, kind of denting and wrecking everything in its path. So it went through the brake line, it went through, it didn't go through the fuel line, but the fuel line was really, really buckled, and the passenger footwell at the front was pushed right up. So when the crash happened, I did think I was going to be replacing all these panels, but I kind of decided not to. It's not that I don't mind spending the money, I didn't really need to. A good stamp and that footwell was exactly where it should have been. It might not be perfect, but it's certainly functional. Subframe is pointing in the right direction. We have replaced, let me just get the bonnet open. We've replaced a number of things. So we replaced the fuel line, and we replaced the brake lines as well. As well as that, on the front of the vehicle, the track rods, these big hefty bars that are here. Now, one of those was badly bent, which I've subsequently learned a track rod kind of dictates where your wheel sits within your arch. So not your toe or your camber, correct me if I'm wrong, but literally the position within the arch itself. So I've ordered new ones of those. Michael, the mechanic, has got the new uprated ones installed, and they're adjustable as well, so we can change the position if we need to. The front of the car, let me get you a bit closer. All of this front valance was completely smashed in. That rock had just obliterated everything from just under the grille kind of down. Now, all of these panels are still original, and I decided to keep them and the arches that we'll talk about in a minute is because I wanted to kind of teach myself a little bit of body work. I got myself a hammer and dolly set. I've got the welder, so I could focus on some other areas where the metal had actually torn. But I managed to manipulate and pull all of this back out. It's noticeable in a couple of spots, but other than that, it's actually pretty good. So it looks like the Mini will live to fight another day. If you've liked this video, don't forget to hit subscribe. I would really appreciate it, as most of my views do come from non-subscribers. And let me know what you think. What shall I do next with this little pocket rocket?